Help! I can't hire. Hello, Architect Nation. Enoch Sears here, and today we're going to talk about one of the most challenging things in today's architectural market, which is help, I can't hire. If you run an architectural practice for any amount of time, you know that there is a lack, there's a scarcity of mid-market, kind of mid-level professionals in the market right now. And perhaps you tried to hire these people, perhaps you had a team member that's left. As a matter of fact, I just got off a call earlier today with an architect who had 3 team members give their notices in the past 2 months. And then yesterday, we had another architect who's part of our Smart Practice program that said that he lost 2 people in the last year. And these are small firms. So as you can imagine, when you lose people, it can really hurt the firm. It really hurts your schedule, because then who's going to pick up all that extra slack? Not a fun place to be in. So today we're going to talk about some of the problems that exist around this idea of hiring, the solution to those problems, the possibility, some of the principles that underlie the solutions, and then give you a simple path and simple way forward here.
And now a message from today's sponsor. If you haven't used ARCAT's Spec Wizard before, hey, now's the time to try it out. Spec Wizard is a patented tool that allows you to specify a product in just 3 steps, all for free and without even registering. Step 1, research and find the right products for your project on arcat.com. Step 2, use the Spec Wizard tool to select the right products and options. Step 3, generate a complete 3-part CSI or CSC specification based on your selections. Now, maybe you enjoy toiling through long documents, parsing things together and creating a specification. And if that's your case, well, this probably isn't for you. But if you want to get it done in half the time that it used to, or even a fraction of that, ARCAT is your place. Again, Spec Wizard is free to use and requires 0 registration. So to use it, head over to arcat.com. That's ARCAT.com today and try Spec Wizard. ARCAT is a fantastic resource and one that I counted on when I was actively practicing architecture to help me simplify getting these important specifications right.
It's time to announce this month's 200, 300, and 400 Club. If you missed our episode on the 200 Club, listen to BOA episode 485 to learn more about this new initiative for benchmarking small firm performance. So big congratulations to our 200 Club members, Ramiro Torres, Julia Aria, Philip Yang, and Sean Kakigi, Jorge Catran, Yogesh Mistry, Marina Rubina, Brad Smith, Dina Bola, Joost Bende, George Argyris, Brad Hubble and Suzanne Daly, Judy and Larry Apel, and Chris Driscoll. Our 300 Club members this month are Charles Scram, Irene Adams, Mark Elster, and Christopher Brandon. And our whopping 400 Club members are Kimberly Dokes and Drew and Justine Tyndall. Great job to all of our 200, 300, and 400 Club members. Keep up the fantastic work.
So what's the problem we're addressing in today's episode? The problem is this, that you have need on your team, but you can't hire. You can't find the right person to fulfill this need. Or perhaps you've hired for this position before in the past, and maybe you've had to let that person go. Or maybe you've brought someone on, but they're just not the right fit. They're underperforming, and you realize that this isn't a fit for them. Or perhaps you've had a job posting up for a while now. You've had a job, you've had a need, you know you need to hire someone, but it seems like months and months and months have passed, and you're not getting any good applications. You're not getting any good resumes that match the kind of person that you need for this role. Or perhaps you are getting some qualified people, but you're losing these people to other firms that pay more, perhaps have better benefits. And so there you are, not being able to hire the person that you need to be able to move forward your goals as a firm owner, increase the amount of the efficiency and the effectiveness of your team. So one of the problems you may be experiencing is simply feeling overwhelmed, feeling like you have too many things to do, it's overloaded. Perhaps it's even been this way for a while. And, this is not uncommon, right? Here in our own business of architecture, we've had to deal with this as well. So as an example, we spent about 3 months putting out an excellent hiring process and a job role for administrative assistant on our team. We hired this person and we had to let her go within 30 days because it just wasn't a fit, despite all the best practices that we implemented. So the reality here is that you can have the best hiring process, you can have the best interviewing process, and still there's no guarantees in business. But what I do promise to give you today is a good way forward to be able to rearrange your mind, to be able to give you some tools and strategies to help you get the kind of people that you need in your practice. Because if there's one thing about architecture, here it is. Architecture is a people business, meaning you're not creating widgets, you're not creating something that's devoid of personality. You're working with people. People are your product. And this is one of the challenges, because managing and hiring, recruiting, and coaching people is one of the most challenges, but also one of the most transcendental, one of the most exciting, one of the most soul-expanding ways that you can grow as a firm owner. So what's the possibility? The possibility here in this episode is that you have the right fit for the job. You have more freedom in your own life. You have more money in your own life. Your quality of delivery goes up, which means your word of mouth spreads because you have that person who's able to help you get products through the door. You don't have to turn away clients perhaps that you're having to turn away now, or your lead times, your wait times are reduced because you have the right team for the right projects for the right size firm. Now, I'm going to go through 4 critical principles here when you're thinking about hiring. And at the near the end of this episode, I'm going to share with you a tool that we offer here at Business of Architecture. I'm actually going to give it to you practically for free for the price of a coffee latte. And you can get that by going to businessofarchitecture.com/delegate. But before we get into that, principle number 1 here is that hiring is a marketing and sales exercise. So what do I mean by that? Just as if you're going out to the market and you're looking to bring in more work into your firm, you want to identify who are the right clients for what we do. What's the budget that these clients are going to have? How does their mission and how do their values align with our mission and values as a firm? The same thing applies to you finding an architectural professional to join your firm. It's a marketing exercise, right? Now, the marketing could be as simple as putting up a job posting on Indeed or Monster, one of these resume websites. It could be as simple as putting up a job posting on your local AI board, or maybe just a notice on your website, and that may be sufficient for you. You may be able to get the candidates you need with that, but that in and of itself is a marketing exercise. So we think about marketing. Marketing is all about using multiple channels to be able to get a message out to the right prospect. So Dan Kennedy talks about this thing called the marketing triangle. He talks about media, message, and market. And when we talk about media is basically the channel. It's the way you get the message out there. Market is the market you're going after, so the prospect, and the message is the message that you're delivering to them. So when you're creating your job post, consider that this job post is not just a job post, it is actually a marketing exercise. Just like a marketing piece would have a headline, just like those ads that are so successful, you see that like in the first 5 seconds, they give you a very clear like little hook, right? You're going to use these same principles in your job ad. So principle number 1 is the understanding that hiring is a marketing and sales exercise. And so because of that, it's going to take some work. It's going to take some effort. You need to approach it like a marketing exercise, right? Meaning, number 1, get very clear on who you're fishing for, right? Understand, what is the fish you're fishing for? Is it an Atlantic cod? Is it a salmon? Is it a trout, right? Because I know if I go up here in the lakes near where I live and I'm fishing for salmon, I'm not going to catch anything, right? So a lot of times the reason why you're not getting the right person responses to your job ads is because you're not fishing in the right fishing hole. You're not going where the fish are. And one of the reasons why you're not going where the fish are is because you don't actually understand who the ideal person is that you need to find. So that's principle number 3 is be clear on the fish that you actually want to get. Principle number 4 is plant your tree now. When you look at people that you've hired in the past, and after, in our work consulting with architectural practices, one of the best ways to find employees for your firm is through your existing employees. In other words, through networks. So let me give you an example. Years ago, we were remodeling my house, and there was a very specific kind of wood siding that we needed to find to match the existing siding of the home. So it had a very particular groove pattern. It wasn't a typical shiplap, and it was beautiful old growth redwood. And as we went to the various lumber yards, and we looked for someone that had this off the shelf, didn't exist. And so through asking around and visiting various lumber yards, we eventually were introduced to this gentleman who's basically this old-timer craftsman, and he has this shop with all these different bevels. And so he was able to custom mill the siding that I needed for my home. So what does this have to do with you not being able to hire? Well, just consider that in my case, the way we're able to get this siting done was that we found what I call an invisible river, right? So in the business world, there are what we call invisible rivers. These are connections that people make where they can introduce you to solutions. So just as in terms of the work that comes to your firm, probably a majority of it comes through referrals. Those are the invisible rivers that I'm talking about. It's based upon your network. The same thing applies to looking for potential employees in your practice. And a former company I used to work at, the COO, several years after I'd stopped working there, I got an email message from him and he said, Enoch, do you know anyone who's looking for this kind of qualities? And he gave me his resume and his description of what he did. He said, I'm currently in a job transition. I'm looking for a new opportunity, right? Now, what he knew how to do very well was he knew how to reach out to his network. He knew how to foster his network. He knew that the best opportunities were going to come through his network. So going back to principle number 2, which is you need to fish where the fish are. Oftentimes when you're putting a job ad up and you're hoping that that's going to get the right employee, you're limiting the pool of potential employees based upon who's currently looking for a job at that time. So this is why principle number 4 is plant your tree now. As a business owner, it's super important that you're consistently reaching out to people, staying in touch with employees who've left, staying in touch with colleagues, asking your employees, hey, do you know anyone who might be a good fit for the practice here? Like, these are going to be the best ways to find someone to hire. So ultimately, if you're watching or listening to this episode and you're finding it difficult hiring, then certainly one of the things we can do is we can just blame the job market. Oh, there's no architects out there to hire. It's hard to hire. All the big firms are stealing all the people. I can't compete with those salaries. But I encourage you to turn the mirror around and say, okay, look, what control do I have in this situation? Okay, what can I do? If you're finding that you're having difficulty hiring, what that is telling you, what that fact is telling you, is that you need to get better. That means the way that your firm is being marketed isn't sufficient. That means that perhaps the job ad that you're putting up there isn't captivating enough. That means that there's something missing. Perhaps you haven't nurtured your network. Okay. What I would encourage you and what I would say to you is that it is possible. So no matter where you're at, even if you're in an area where it's very expensive to live, oftentimes if you're running a practice in an area where there's high net worth, maybe Palm Beach, Florida, or Santa Barbara, California, like firms in these areas have difficulty hiring because oftentimes team members have to commute in. Like if this is you know what I'm talking about. Team members have to commute in to be able to work there. And oftentimes they won't stay long because there's a high cost of living. If they want to raise families, they move away to a cheaper area where they can afford a house, etc. And so it makes it challenging. Like there's no doubt about it. And perhaps maybe you live in a rural area, an area in which you don't have access to an architectural college or there's a limited amount of employees. Well, again, you just need to get better. You need to get better at being able to entice people to come to work at your practice. Obviously, there's always remote solutions. There's contract solutions that you could look into. But what I will say is that we have firm members who are part of Smart Practice who live in high net worth areas. They're dealing with all the same challenges that you're dealing with. And they have overcome these problems because they approach this like a marketing and a sales issue. So when we look at marketing and sales, number 1, marketing is getting your message out there to the right people. And sales is then convincing those people that this is a fit for them, right? Now, the last thing I'll say as we wrap up this episode is just remember that marketing and sales can only go so far. Ultimately, your mindset of understanding that your people are your most valuable asset, that people are an investment in your firm, that they are your producers, they're the people that deliver the work, and that your best investment is going to be investing in high quality people. This is the difference between the firms that are the A firms, the B firms, and the C firms. The C firms are the firms that are always just hiring cheap. They're always looking to save money when they hire people. They don't want to pay the highest salaries. As a result, they're not making much money. What we typically find is that it's not the firms that are paying a little that make the most money. The firms who are paying their employees the best often have the highest margins. The compensation is the best. And so it's a no-brainer. The data suggests that when you pay your employees well, when you set up the right hiring processes, when you vet them appropriately, when you have the adequate job role, that your firm will be more profitable, that your time will be saved, that you will have more freedom as a firm owner. Early in this episode, I mentioned a resource called our Delegation Roadmap. One of the problems when you're looking at hiring is that oftentimes we're not exactly clear on the exact tasks and things that we need someone to do. And the symptoms of this is when they come on board, then there's some lack of clarity about what they're supposed to do. We're sort of inventing the role as we go. The delegation roadmap is a tool that we use internally here at Smart Practice. It's part of the Smart Practice program. And typically no one outside of Smart Practice would get access to this tool. But because you're listening to this episode, you can get access to our delegation roadmap tool. If you go to businessofarchitecture.com/delegate, you'll go through a process. It takes about 90 minutes. There's a video training that goes along with it. When you go through that process, you will have a very, very clear picture on what are the exact tasks that this person and this new role needs to take on in this new position so that you can have more freedom, more flexibility, more financial reward, ultimately more efficiency and more effectiveness in your practice. So with that, carpe diem, goodbye for now. And remember, that's businessofarchitecture.com/delegate to get a hold of that delegation roadmap exercise.
And that's a wrap. Hey, Enoch Sears here, and I have a request since you are a listener here of the Business of Architecture podcast. Ryan and I, we love putting this podcast together. We love sharing information as much as we can glean from all the other industries that we're a part of to bring it back to empower you as an architect and a designer. And one thing that helps us in our mission is the growth of this podcast, simply because it helps other architects stand for more of their value, spreads the business information that we're sharing to empower architects together so architects, designers, engineers can really step into their greatness, whatever that looks like for each individual. And so here my simple ask is for you to join us and be part of our community by doing the following: heading over to iTunes and leaving a review of the podcast. And as an expression of our sincere thanks, we would like to give you a free CEU course that can get you one professional development unit, but more importantly, we'll give you a very solid and firm foundation on your journey to becoming a profitable and thriving architect. So here's the process for that. After you leave us a review, send an email to support@businessofarchitecture.com. Let us know the username that you use to leave the review, and we will send you that free training. On the training, you'll discover what 99% of architecture firm owners wish they would have known 20 years ago. And the other 1%, well, they just didn't even know that they didn't know. Head over to iTunes and leave us a review now. And now a message from today's sponsor. If you haven't used ARCAT's Spec Wizard before, hey, now's the time to try it out. Spec Wizard is a patented tool that allows you to specify a product in just 3 steps, all for free and without even registering. Step 1, research and find the right products for your project on arcat.com. Step 2, use the Spec Wizard tool to select the right products and options. Step 3, generate a complete 3-part CSI or CSC specification based on your selections. Now, maybe you enjoy toiling through long documents, parsing things together and creating a specification. And if that's your case, well, this probably isn't for you. But if you want to get it done in half the time that it used to, or even a fraction of that, ARCAT is your place. Again, Spec Wizard is free to use and requires 0 registration. So to use it, head over to arcat.com. That's ARCAT.com today and try Spec Wizard. ARCAT is a fantastic resource and one that I counted on when I was actively practicing architecture to help me simplify getting these important specifications right. The views expressed on the show by my guests do not represent those of the host, and I make no representation, promise, guarantee, pledge, warranty, contract, bond, or commitment, except to help you conquer the world. Carpe diem.